Hi, this is Joe, and welcome to the Pebble Lane Kids YouTube channel. So this week, I'm going to talk about growing up in 1980 as I worked as Yoda on the Wildwood Boardwalk at the Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back ride. All I know is I dressed up as Yoda and worked on the Star Wars ride, and it was great. It was the summer of 1980. So let me take you back a little bit beforehand. My great aunt Josie, worked at the ticket booth on Moreys Pier. So she was in the little ticket area, and she worked literally 6 days a week during the summer. She was really a hard worker. And she was a wonderful woman. She had this dyed curly red hair, always had a perm, always dressed nice. And she used to take me and my little brother up to the boardwalk on her night off. Her only night off, she went right back up to the boardwalk, and she took us up to Morey's Piers and Hunt's Piers, and we went on the rides. And there's a famous or infamous, whatever you want to call it, picture of my brother and I walking on the Wildwood Boardwalk, taken by Aunt Josie, where I had a Suzanne Summers decal t-shirt, and my brother had the Farrah Fawcett t-shirt. And for some reason, the decals were on the back. I don't know what was on the front, but the decals of these shirts were on the back. So anyway, that was Aunt Josie. She took us on the pier all the time. And in 1980, Mrs. Morey, I believe her name was Dolores, she let me be Yoda on the Star Wars, and that year in 1980 was the Empire Strikes Back ride. And I dressed up as Yoda. I wore a mask. That was a Yoda mask. And where the eyelids were, eyebrows were it was a little slit in the mask, and that's where I could see out. And, it had the ears sticking out, and it was it was original, or, a true blue, Yoda mask. And the outfit was a burlap sack from the giant slide. If anybody remembers Moreys Piers back then, they had the giant slide called the Wipeout, and you used to slide down on a burlap sack. You sat on it, and then you had it over your lap as well, and they put a little sheet of some kind of slippery paper underneath, and you went down the slide, and it was this giant fiberglass slide. So anyway, the costume for Yoda was they cut a hole in the center of this giant piece of burlap, and I just stuck my head through it and wrapped it around me with some rope, and that was it. That was the costume. And I remember meeting these young people that were from Millville, New Jersey, which was a town near Wildwood. And Millville, New Jersey, there were some people there. They were part of the school play or something. They were called the Star Wars Players. That's all I knew about these guys. And they came up on the pier, and they all, or some of them, got a job at the ride, because they were the Star Wars Players, and they came up there. And I met this really great guy. His name was Mike Van Stein, who was a couple years older than me. And he actually had a house. His family had a mini hotel around the corner from my family's house on Lavender Road. He had a house on Buttercup. So the Star Wars Players, Mike was Luke Skywalker. And I believe he was 15 at the time, or 16. And I was 14. And then there was a Han Solo, and that was it. And then the Princess Leia who eventually became Mike's sister-in-law, married his older brother. And she was a blonde Princess Leia. and she was so pretty nobody cared. So you had this blonde Princess Leia. You had Mike, who was really handsome, and he was in the Luke Skywalker outfit, which I think was a karate gi. And that was the same thing with Princess Leia. She was in a karate gi. And then you have the Han Solo guy walking around. So the characters were outside of the ride most of the time to draw people in the ride. And then Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker took the tickets. So what was really cool about this ride, it was one of those homes, those spaceship-looking homes. I forget what they're called. But they were made in the 70s, and they were these prefab fiberglass homes that Moreys turned into a ride. There was a guy by the name of Freddie Mahana who did all kinds of things creating rides, and I think he was involved in this ride. He did the Haunted House and some other rides back then. But I think, I'm not sure, because again, I was 14 years old. He did this ride, and it was this Futura. I think it's called the Futura home. And that was the spaceship. And then the theme of the ride is when you walked into this Futura home, and it was a Star Cruise. And in the center was a R2-D2 replica. It was, R2-D2 was in the middle of the ride, middle of the spaceship, and everybody sat around in a circle in a couple rows. And then there was a little booth area where the driver of the spaceship was. And he originally started out with a C-3PO costume. And his name was Ray Bloom when I worked there. And Ray, if you read the books, that's Ramon Bloomfeld. So if you read Adventures of the Pebble Lane Kids and Rewind the Madness, you have Mitch Van Crest is Mike Van Stein, and Ramon Bloomfeld is Ray Bloom. So I met these guys, and they've been lifelong friends ever since. So Ray drove the ship and, or operated the ship originally as C-3PO. And then the whole scheme of the whole ride, the theme of the ride was that the spaceship and all the passengers were captured by the Empire. So when the lights went out towards the end of the spinning ride, Ray would then throw on a stormtrooper outfit. He would, switch the helmet and the shirt and whatnot when the lights were out. And that's when we got captured by Darth Vader. So all the riders got captured by Darth Vader. A Darth Vader came in, guy in the Darth Vader costume, and he motioned for the people to get out of the spaceship and then go through the walkthrough part of the ride. So what was interesting about this ride is earlier it was the Planet of the Apes ride, and I believe people got captured by the apes. And what's really interesting and funny about this whole story is that when I was younger, my cousin Anthony Amorosi, he was one of the apes. So there was a time when my brother Anthony and I were on the ride, and the apes came and they picked us up and took us out of the ride into the captured area. And people freaked out because they had no idea if this was part of the ride or what was going on. So, this was like 6 or 7 years earlier. And it was great back then. And, Anthony took us. They literally carried us out of the ride. So here I am 8, 9 years later, dressed as Yoda, because I would be outside on the boardwalk and then inside as well, sometimes taking the ride and then talking to people or, doing the Yoda thing inside of the spaceship after, during the ride. And after it got captured, I would do the walkthrough with people. So it was wonderful. And then the end of the ride was actually a transporter, because the original ride was Star Trek Journey to the Planet of the Apes. So they mixed up everything as this ride, the evolution of the ride. So you'd walk through the caverns and underneath the boardwalk and whatever it was, all through this fiberglass area that was all this foam, this puffy foam, whatever it was made of. And then you walked up the steps and you came to these transporters, which was just, you stand on it and they turn it, and then you're outside to the boardwalk. So that was wonderful. It's just a great experience in 1980. And, every once in a while, the Darth Vader and I would be out front and we would scare people. And, it was funny because there were some people who got very animated and very scared when we came up to them, and we chased them off the boardwalk. I remember Darth Vader and I literally followed these people all the way down the pier out to the main boardwalk and down the ramp on 25th Street. And it was wonderful. It was a wonderful summer. It was the summer of 1980. I was 14. And, I really wish there was video of the Star Wars ride. And, there's a few pictures of me. I'm making this recording now, and I'll show you as many pictures as I can. But this was a really wonderful summer. And, I became lifelong friends with, Mike Vanstein and Ray Bloom. And I wrote about them in, the first two books, Mitch Van Crest and Ramon Bloomfeld. So this is my first YouTube video of life in the 1980s. And I wanted to start out with this absolutely fantastic summer and this fantastic story. And if anybody was on the ride, please make a comment. In fact, what's interesting is I owned a house in Diamond Beach for about 20 years, and we met the lifeguards at Diamond Beach, and what's interesting is they remembered the Star Wars ride. Until today, there's a picture of me dressed as Yoda in their lifeguard prep area down in Diamond Beach. So if you go down to Diamond Beach and you look for the lifeguard named Kevin, ask him if there is a picture of Yoda still in the lifeguard tent or the lifeguard office down in Diamond Beach, at the club at Diamond Beach, all the way down at the end, because you might see a picture, this picture here from 1980. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. This is a great story. I had a great time. It was the summer of 1980, and please make a comment if you were there, and if anyone has video or photos of the Star Wars ride or me as Yoda or any of the Star Wars players or anybody, please contact us through here on YouTube or whatever platform you find us, and let us know, because we'd love to see it. Thank you for watching, and go read Adventures of the Pebble Lane Kids, Rewind the Madness, and Freshman Year, and you will have a blast. I guarantee it. I'm the author. It's fun, and thank you for watching.